Right, we'll get started because half an hour is nowhere near enough time to talk about opioids. However, we're going to give it a go. My name's John. I have been a GP for 20 years and done 14 years working with Citadel and Fitton Estate, and then 6 years before that working in Tameside. And how I deal, and so Rachel Belton was preparing this with me. If you'd like anything in the session, it's her brains plainly. And we realised that what we do now is very different than what we did, 20 years ago. And a lot of that is about, still being compassionate, still being good doctors, but being a bit more cynical, a bit more streetwise. And you can never be too streetwise when it comes to opioids. Never be too streetwise, Caleb, okay? This is reduction we're doing here. We're not giving any opioids away, just to let you know. Right, and also, so very quickly, I'm a shy extrovert, so I had arranged the chairs in little groups to talk to each other, and as you can see what the first group has done, which is just, refuse to talk to each other, but they did eventually break into a group. So here's the plan. We're going to talk about some principles, some key skills, and a bit of an attitude thing. Because I think if you've come here, this is because you care about opioid reduction, but you're struggling a bit with it. And actually you're struggling a bit because you're a really good, patient-centred, empathetic practitioner. And so therefore, the idea that a patient would get angry at you because of something you've done fills you with a bit of horror. And the fact that a patient might be asking you and pleading with you, this is the one thing, this one tablet will somehow fix everything. We all join that journey, don't we? And then we really struggle. So we're going to talk a bit about how you make a Fort Knox around your head when that happens, because you're all too nice and we need to be a bit more hard. And all I've done is just copy the hard-nosed GPs I've worked with who I thought were brilliant. And then I do some internal narration, which we'll talk about. So that's what we're going to do, but we're going to very quickly go around. You're going to tell me your name, and you're going to tell me where you're from, and you're going to tell us what your issues are with opioids or what you're hoping to learn. And you're going to do it about 20 seconds, because that's the entire 30 minutes. Go on, hopefully, if we do that. What's your name? Say right on.
Sarah, I'm GP in Haywood.
Yep.
I've done some opiate reduction, and if I can do it through talking and diplomatic kind of persuasion, and that's fine. But then there's a couple where you really need to bite the bullet, and it's kind of thinking, right, no, this needs to happen, and then they're not agreeing. So how do I just say, right, this is happening anyway?
Yes.
That's the thing I still struggle with a bit.
Yeah. And the previous group said, what do you do whenever you've done all the things we've talked about, and they say, right, I'm just going to go bad off the street?
Oh yeah.
What,
okay.
What do you do? Because the right answer is, okay, off you go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it, it's not very pure. Let me try and sell you some NHS drugs instead, but my NHS drugs on sale are with these rules.
I'm a co-production worker for a homeless charity. Yeah, and I think the reason I wanted to come along was because I have a bit of awareness of the repeated of the script for the methadone.
Yeah.
It's so damaging to our people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just curious to why people keep saying that script, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. Emily?
I'm Emily, I'm GPST 3, we finished in September, and I still feel like I'm probably a little bit too soft when I've got that person saying please, please, please.
Yes.
That's why I'm here.
Hang around, we'll sort that out.
Abhishek, GPSC3 as well. I just want to learn when is it actually useful?
Yeah.
And then where is that line where it becomes harmful?
Yes.
How you can work with the patient to try and get them into that safe zone again.
Fantastic, but stay curious, we'll try and answer some of that.
I'm Emily, GPST3, I currently work in Oldham. I am also a bit soft, but I've been watching Dope Sick recently.
Yes.
And I'm really depressed about it, so I feel like I'm just not going to learn.
Is there any other drug that we give out that has got a worse success profile, that works as rubbishly for chronic pain as opioids? Think about your antibiotic, think about your mental health drugs. There's no other drug we give out where actually we know it just doesn't work as well as the patient thinks it does. So why do we do it? That's a really good thing.
I'm Hannah, I'm a GP trainee based in Liverpool, and I've not had much experience with opioid reduction, so
Yes.
I'm just quite keen to glean any information I can.
Thank you.
And me, I'm a GPSC3 as well. I'm also I'm very soft.
Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to come up a bit more. Really.
But being soft is what makes you a phenomenal family doctor, but not here, not with opioid reduction. And it's that, behavioural flexibility is the key skill to knowing that you're progressing as a practitioner. I'm hopefully much more flexible than I was, and I can change patient to patient. Well, hopefully I can. Thomas?
So I'm Tom, I'm at ST3 as well, I work in central Liverpool.
Yes.
I guess like we've outlined before, just that you have these drugs and you kind of know they're not doing the patient any good,
Yeah.
but there's always such a disconnect between sort of what you think and the patient thinks, and just learning a bit how to try and bridge that gap
And
would be good.
that's really helpful. And our training colleagues, have you discovered a difference between a practice where everyone's on the same page, or is a kind, nice doctor that you can just go to get anything you want? Yeah? It's almost like we're learning the points as we go along here. That's great. Go on.
Jake, one of the GPSTs, I think one of the bits I struggle with is when opiates have been started, particularly in the elderly, they've been on it for years and years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to have that conversation of bringing it down, and I've not started them on my terms, and it's very hard to get people on board, particularly when it's just been on their repeats.
And here's the bad news. We're not going to talk about opioid initiation, because we all know, little least, get a contract at the very start. Probably write it down if you're in a shared practice. So Jane was here, and we from Middleton last time, and I'll write it down, has promised to only take this many weeks and then stop. And then whenever they see Jane, because they haven't seen me, maybe they've avoided me, Jane, you promised Dr. Patterson that you weren't going to take any more of these. But, so, however, that's not our problem today. Our problem is you will inherit 5 to 10% of your list who will have an entrenched problem and need help. And they're there, and that is, and they'll say to you, oh, the previous doctor's much better than you. You know, it all starts, doesn't it?
I'm an ST3 in Liverpool as well, but
Yeah.
I've literally got a patient in mind that it's on my task list. I'm going to bring her in because
Yes.
she's but I'm really soft, and I really want to.
We'll
be
form a
able to-
WhatsApp
I don't
group.
know how to,
You phone us all in on an earpiece, and we'll be coaching you all the way through it.
I'm Fran, I'm a GP trainee. I also really struggle to say no to a patient when they're really asking for help, when they
Yes.
need something and I'm not going to give them anything at all when they leave the door. I find that difficult.
Recognising is part of the journey. Well done.
Hello, I'm Ines, I'm GP in Oldham, and I've been GP trainer for a few years, so now I'm not soft anymore, I used to be.
I work with Ines. She's right. Brilliant, but not soft. Yeah, go on, yeah. Okay.
So, the issue now I'm struggling with is when we have a locum, and I have all respect to a locum, and they go back to where I started.
Yes.
So, although the plan was
Yeah.
not on.
Okay, there's a camera in the corner. We got that you have all respect for all locums, so I'll remind you of that later on. Meg?
Hi, I'm Meg. I'm a GP trainee in Liverpool. I've been mainly hospital medicine so far, so it's kind of been dishing out drugs rather than taking people
Yeah.
off it. I know I like to be liked. I know this is going to be tricky for me.
Yeah, good. Not 20 minutes time, I'm going to fix the whole thing.
Hi, I'm Fiona, I'm a salary GP with Hope Citadel. I'm just interested in this, not so soft anymore on it, but I'm really interested by how often there's an undisclosed trauma history.
Come on.
When you dig into why people want Google more credentials.
Brilliant. Jess.
Hi, I'm Jess, I'm GP in Macclesfield, and I think it's just that communication factor, and I want to get better. I don't think I'm soft with
Yeah.
it, but I just want to, so that I don't break that trust between me and my patients, so
Yeah.
I'm just learning that better.
Thank you so much.
Hi, Cheryl, GPST2. I also want to learn the act of being good to the patient,
Yeah.
at the same time knowing when to say no
Okay.
to their request. But I now seen a patient that wanted me to put her on opioids, but I refused because I don't think she needed it at that point. I tried to kind of juggle through the pain medication she was
Yes.
on at the time to make sure she was having the maximum doses of those before. I didn't even want to talk about opioids anyway, so I'd like to learn everything about that.
Everything, great. In 15 minutes. So, that's what you know, high school, ketamine. We all know what's happening in high school. I've got 4 kids in high school. I know all about opioid reduction in the teenage range. Caleb.
Hi, I'm Caleb. I might become a doctor one day, so
Yes.
just wondering if maybe I don't get into the trap of making.
Come on, man.
make a drug deal.
Start early, good model.
I'm GPST3 in Wigan. I'm basically here to see how to reduce without being insensitive to the patient, because their pain is real. So
Yeah.
it's gauging, like someone said,
Yeah.
what to dish out at what time, and
Yeah.
when to say, oh, we need to cut back.
And the pain is real, but it might not be a physical pain that needs an opioid. Yeah?
Hi, I'm Blessing Otsubel. I'm a newly qualified GP. It's a very difficult conversation having this with
Yeah.
the reduction, so that it may lead to an argument. So how do you stay calm
Yeah.
and have that conversation and help the patient?
Brilliant.
I'm Emma, I'm an ST3 in Stockport, so I think all the things that have already been said, but also just how to approach the conversation with the patient without being implicitly critical of your colleagues that haven't done it or have increased the dose.
Yes, well, that's the one joy of the job, isn't it? But anyway, so Here's the second most useful thing. You know that everybody else in this room is a really good doctor, and here they are on this training course, but they're struggling with the thing that you're struggling with. So it's okay, the thing you're struggling with is a difficult thing, but it is also learnable, and we're all going to learn it together. So what I'd like to do is look at case study 2, Rashida. Yes, and think about Rashida as a person. So don't jump into your clinical, what are the milligrams and what are the milligrams reduction per week. That's not the right answer. Those are, and then so we're gonna have 2 minutes to read it, and then 2 minutes is to talk. So funnel into your extrovert self and just talk to someone. Don't worry about starting first or starting second. So just 2 minutes to read. Think about Rashida as a person, and then start a chat with the person next to you. If you're comfortable with that, thank you. So go on, your quick readings. Now's the time to start the conversation. Thank you.
You're a 27-year-old.
Okay, you've got 1 minute left. Okay, I'm really sorry to cut across you. Sorry to cut across you, but time is time. Thank you very much. So, who heard something brilliant from their partner in discussion, or let's be honest, who said something pretty brilliant? I'm going to tell the rest of the room. So, any volunteers? You heard something really good about how you approach Rashida, some of the issues.
You sort of said about going back to the beginning and sort of readdressing the issue, say what's happened, why are we on it, is anything else that's going on in your life?
Yeah, okay, that's really helpful. Brilliant. Anything else?
It's actually a medication error. This is all our fault because we're giving her the strong tablets.
Yeah. Is it just one medication error, or are there a couple of errors?
Yeah, quite a few. So it's been rolled over and over.
And that holiday script, especially with opioids, patients talk to each other about how to get more opioids. There's forums. It used to be called the Blue Square. It's now called Lyceum. I don't spend my time in these forums, but they'll tell you how to, extract your fentanyl, things you say to your doctor to get more, how to get your gabapentins, etc. That's a conversation that some patients will have. Yeah, and the holiday script is a no-win game. Some of you are thinking, "Oh, I've given a holiday script. I wonder if I changed it from one off into a repeat." And that's what happened to this patient here. Okay. So, what is the worst case scenario for Rashida? What's the worst case scenario for what happens to her and her family and her job?
She loses it all.
Yeah. So this is an amalgam of a patient, but my wife and I moved on to an estate. We met this lovely family. Something was going on. Noticed loads of painkillers. Asked her to come and register at our practice because she was getting them for free at her practice. Then one day she was looking really sick. She was pregnant with her third child. I then said, "You need to come and register with us. Let's talk about this." She goes, No, we're at a party, we're not going to talk about it. 2 nights later, she was dead. And she was dead because this is how you kill your liver. And when you're pregnant, this is how you kill yourself. Accidentally. I won't even talk to you how that family is now 10 years later. And you know, now I just drag people into surgery and register them, really do now, and that's why we're into this. But this is what happens to our patients, and then to their kids, and then all that intergenerational stuff happens. So it's really worth doing this. Okay. However, what do you understand by the cycle of change? So this isn't, we're a medical student in the last session, this isn't an OSCE. You don't have one go, you don't have 15 minutes of this. This is a problem that's happened. We're recognising the moral injury, aren't we? The fact that we think it's our fault. We don't even know, it's, you know, it's us, and then they'll say it's us. You know, and then the other example you might read about when you go home, a patient who hasn't had an operation because of COVID, and the doctor I was talking with was like, oh, I just feel so bad for them. Yeah, but why compound the problem by then giving them another addiction, another problem? So, what things could we support her in her life that would make her more open to the idea of reducing her tablets? And the last group.
Why she started previously, and why is she still needing them?
Yes, okay. Right, well, you know, I took it for pain, but let's think about what things would make her more open and more able to stop these tablets. Because this is a big ask. It's a lot of morphine, isn't it? It's a lot of
building trust with you.
Yeah, rapport, brilliant.
And that, as you said, I think it's that knowing that maybe today you're not going to make that big of a difference.
Yeah.
You're going to see her again, and you're going to see her again.
Yeah.
Hopefully, and chipping away at it each time.
Yeah.
Bring her on to that. She probably isn't even on the cycle of change. She doesn't want to be on the cycle of change, so you're going to have to like get her on there with you.
I think learning as well.
Yeah.
Learning, like teaching patient what
yeah.
the outcome is, you know. Take a little bit longer an explanation.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
If you want to get someone involved, you inform them. So so again, does she understand that she's taking a dangerous dose? Does she, you know, what are her side effects? Does she understand that there are side effects of this tablet? How do we make people give up smoking? Well, we have this same conversation. Do you realise that you're breastfeeding? Do you realise it's costing lots of money? Do you realise it's a cancer risk? Has anybody had that shared discussion with Rashida? So that's part of it, isn't it? And then it's just that idea of, so I look 52, I'm only 24, this is what the NHS has done. And my mistake, which I confess to you, especially those of you in training, is that I tried to act as if they were right in that OSCE moment of wanting to change, as opposed to put the spade work in. A lot of what we do in focused care is get people to the point where they're right in the right part of the cycle of change. And that is side effects. That is the inconvenience of the tablets. So patients will say to you, oh, if it's a bank holiday, I really panic, and if I miss the tablets, people treat me like I'm an addict, and then I have to make up, you know, if I lose them, I wash it in the washing machine, you know, all those stories. And they hate that. They hate the side effects, they hate that, they hate being someone else in control. So if we give our patient a sense of agency, if we give our patient the information they need to know about this chemical that they're taking, what if she's using these tablets for depression? I know I can only get through my life if I give this little buzz in the morning, and I'm so nervous I put it on my face, and I take 2 codeine and I'm out. So why don't we try treating that a different way? Yeah. And would she then be more likely to think about reducing these tablets, which can make her constipated, and she doesn't really like them anyway? And we talked, so did anybody come up with any ideas about as a system, as a practice, how would you identify people like Rashida as a practice if you're doing like a quality improvement? Has anybody talked about that? So, you know, in certain parts of Manchester we have a speed limit of 120 milligrams of morphine equivalent, and then we identify those patients. But you can do an audit here. How much did opioid prescription go up as in us doctors, not you Tommy, you're not personifying the entire by prescribing the NHS, but me and Tom are. So how much more opioids did we prescribe over COVID? 140% increase in opioid prescription because of laziness, because of our tight controls. So there's a whole population out there who need us to get our heads together, right? Which is the most important thing I'm going to tell you about in a second. Okay, so cycle of change, treating the real things that she's doing. There's some other issues here. What other issues? Did anybody put any other issues here in this story?
She's a 27-year-old mum working from home, which sounds really hard.
Yes, there we go. I just say, yeah. So there's better ways of her doing depression than taking cocodamol, isn't there? You know, big pharma are not the answer for her issues of a 27-year-old mum. Okay, that's good. Safeguarding. I mean, if you have 2,000 tablets, do you reckon that she's got them all stored in a lockable box? Or are they here, there, and everywhere? Okay, good. So, we've talked a bit about the cycle of change. We've talked a little bit about getting her involved and giving her agency. explain to her what's really going on. In the introductions, we talked about the whole team approach. So, what ways can we change her prescription that make it easier for her to reduce herself? She's decided to reduce. How would you change her prescription? Would you still give her 200 every month at the start of the month and say all the best, or what would you do?
We might do a weekly and rolling monthly one. Would it be the same one? Yeah.
Does it though? I hear what you're saying, and you know, and that's compassionate Emma saying that. But saving her £27, but her chomping through the cupboard and dying, have we saved her any money? So I'm just being controversial in that. That's how I think. I think about the money and everything else. But the number one problem is that she's a risk of death. She's a risk to her kids, and she's on loads of codamol.
I wonder whether she's overweight and she's having a knee pain, whether to treat that as well.
Yeah. So, yeah. And what's the evidence for opioids and chronic pain? But we all prescribe it, don't we? But look around the room, we all prescribe it, so be graceful to yourself. It's a problem we need. Okay. So.
If she's having a problem getting hold of the prescription, but you've agreed an amount and a review time, you could do post-dated weekly, so she's not going to have trouble collecting it. And just tell her the dates that's going to be released, so that she doesn't feel like you tricked her. And she's going to turn up the chemist is not there. No, it's in issue, but it's on this day. They will not let you have it before that. That's the end of it.
Post-dated scripts are, if you've got someone who's going to reduce, post-dated scripts are a real important tool, and also saves a lot of hassle, and it gives them that sort of advent calendar approach to their painkillers, so they sort of know when the next ones are coming. Okay. So, what's really interesting about Rashida is that we found her because of a system approach. So what we did at Hilltop was, we had all these people on, not on 120 milligrams, but on loads and loads of cocodamol, and we just decided we'd just keep on reducing them. So anybody who was on 200, we put to 180, people on 160, we put to 140, didn't ask any permission, we just nibbled away. 70% of people said nothing and just got right down to 80 or 60, and once you're taking 60 a month, that's probably fine. And then occasionally you might want to go from 30 to 15. 70% of your patients will just allow you to nibble down on a repeat prescription. But the 30% of people who squeal, you want to cry. You're going to see me every month now. You squeal. How do we know? You know, holding proof who's taking the tablets, who's diverting the tablets? Well, just nibble them down. And the ones who squeal are the ones who win themselves a monthly review from you. And then you can start everything else. Of the people who win the monthly review, 70% of them will comply and do various changes and say thank you, you'll get them, and eventually you'll get them. What do you do about that hardcore who just are not going to and say, I'm going to divert, I'm going to go and buy it off the street? And what have we done in this room before for them?
You try with them a bit with the consulting.
Yeah.
And then if they want to get it from the street, you explain the problem, the cons against it and things and how it's bad for them. And then I don't think they should pressure you to prescribe it just because they're going to get it from somewhere else.
Yeah. And that's important because they'll tell you the story about how you're complicit to this terrible thing of them, but you're not complicit. You're saying, I'm offering you free drugs, I'm offering you what you need, but I'm offering it to you to a way that's safe for you. And so those patients who keep on taking overdoses, you have to remember those patients who keep on taking overdoses and not join them in that game. Right, I'm unsettled because no one's coming and told me I've got this much time. So, with Rashida, we've written to everybody. Oh no, we've chipped everybody down. Oh yes, we've then ended up where she squealed and said, I need my tablets. She's then been identified. We've gone through all these things. We've treated everything else, and the cycle of change. We get her to the right place. She's struggling to comply. Sometimes you have to think about changing the opioid. So for some patients, I give modified release dihydrocodone. Tramadol is a terrible, terrible tablet. I'm going to give it to my best friend who runs off with my wife. The pharmacology is, shall we say, complex. Dihydrocodone was the answer that was invented in the 70s, but they just, it was very cheap, and so no drug companies pushed it. It's just di-to-hydroturbocharged codeine, and you can get them modified release, so they can just get 2 a day, so they get 14 a week, if you want to have a pause and reduce them. That's my nugget to you from the front line, and sell it to them with all that psychological stuff. Just these tablets are mad. These tablets are going to just, give you what you need, but then you can reduce them. Okay. Really glad I said that one on camera. Okay. So that's one thing you can do, but as much as you try all this innovation, sometimes you have to get into a specialist service, and sometimes you have to. And all these tablets we're talking about here aren't section 2, so they don't go on a blue script, but methadone does. And so in my 20 years, I've had to convert 2 patients, both in Middleton, onto a blue script methadone, which is a risk because you don't want to send them to the clinic where all the other addicts are, but you just had to because they were going to kill themselves on their scripts. And then both of them have gone off, which is quite impressive. Okay, so it's really important that you think about those things. Now, let's talk about the fortress in your head. So nobody finds it easy to say no. How have you said no in the past? What do you use to say no in the past?
It's the better for my patient.
Okay, right?
You could just
What's
use-
wisdom?
Yeah, you could just say, this is the practice policy now.
Yes, bad cop. So I don't know how many of you know Austin O'Carroll. It's a coincidence I've mentioned his name. I know a doctor who's really good with homeless people, and he once got in the health authority form a letter he got about gloves. He photostated it, kept the health authority stuff, and wrote himself a letter saying, "Dear Dr. O'Carroll, stop giving out benzos and opioids. You're the head of everything." And then he would say, "Can't give you any more." Now, Rachel and I, when we were talking, said we haven't done that, but as leads of GPs, we have said to patients, well, the lead GP, whoever they are, has said no more. Or the head of the health authority has said, and the speed limit was quite good. There's a national speed limit now, and we can't give you any more. And that bad cop helped them say no. The ideal answer is that all the previous success and the people who have said no to you then come back and thank you, and you know that also helps. But for me, I lived on an estate and I looked after this football team of lads, and some of them did really well and some of them just got involved in lots of stuff. And I remember driving one of them to rehab and I'm saying, do you know what we used to do on a Monday, Doc? And I went, what did you do on a Monday? He said, we would all get together and we'd take everyone's scripts and we'd play Panini stickers, and I'd go, right, there's 2 strips of Cocodamol, I'll have some Xanax, right, you have some Zopicone, right, give me 50 mils of your methadone. And on a Monday, they would just swap everything, take what they could and then divert for the rest of the week. But on the Friday they'd been there with someone like us going, oh please, they'll just, my mum said one tablet will do it. Now I'm not being anti those people that we care about, I'm saying I needed in my head to find that tough place. I had to act a bit more like Dr. Watson in my head. I also had to imagine, so a guy comes to me for some Xanax and every doctor in the practice had said, Dr. Patterson needs a senior one, he'll give you the Xanax when you get to him, I'm too junior, he wouldn't let me do it. Comes to see me, gives me the full emotional thing, and I'm there with him. Mandy, I'm there going, he's right, this one tablet will do. Xanax will fix him, and all the time I'm doing that neighbour internal consultation. So you need to have that internal consultation where you're having a chat to yourself. We're all on the WhatsApp group, Eleanor, with you, saying, this isn't working. No, whatever he said, I'm going to turn off my empathy, I'm going to actively not listen to him. And actually, for me, I just imagined him leaving the room and just laughing at me. And going, ha ha ha. And then I imagined him, dying of an overdose. And I thought, I'm not going to give him these tablets. And actually, it was about saying to him, so look, I think that's the end of our conversation. We're obviously not in agreement here. It's my name on the prescription, and I'm offering you this. And if you don't want it, that's fine. And I overplayed the list. I'm going to do talking therapy, focused care, we'll do all this stuff, perfect. But at the end of the day, if you don't want that, you are free to leave. But I think no one was talking anymore, and it took about half an hour to get him out because he was so entrenched. And every single second of that half an hour, I wanted to give him Xanax. And write SLS beside it, put my name, my GMC number on it. But I just had this conversation of him taking the mick from me, and thinking how he was going to smile to me, but how nasty he was going to be behind my back, and how he's probably going to swap it for something different. And that's the truth, and the truth will set you free. And the truth in these consultations is when you feel like you're most depressed, it's because somebody is applying lots of emotional pressure because they're trying to get something which they know is wrong and you know is wrong, and that's why you feel so compelled. And when we take a deep breath and recognise that, that's, I think, when we can set ourselves free as well, and set the patient free. So, questions? Right.
I think as well, I just want to say, because obviously most all is in here are on the same page to me. I see the lads that come and I see that the way they presented the doctor's surgery and things like that. And I think it's quite a little bit not ironic, but quite strange that you find it hard, this concept, where you'll have people with other angles coming in here and you'll not be able to do that. You're able to perform that way, and I get it, because I say these, mine's a male project, that's why I speak in male, and they can be so present as in arms, the body language, everything I needed, the stories, I've heard it all, of course I have. But it's you can soften that approach to know the outcome could be death. Do you know what I mean? It's that, isn't it? So it's like that toughening, what you're talking about, but you often do that toughening with other things that everybody else comes for. Say, no, you've got the time, this is the way it is. Use no best in that situation.
So it's transferring your success in other things. You've all qualified for medical school. You're the best of the best, guys. It's transferring that success into this tricky conversation. So 70% of it can just be done by simple QI reduction. Of the remaining group, 70% of them will say it's a fair cop and join on to you quite quickly. And the other 30%, it's a trauma and pain conversation that we all find difficult because it's about trauma and pain. But we have other ways of handling trauma and pain, and keep them on it for a while you then change and your approach to their trauma and their pain. And be self-aware, talk to colleagues. That hardcore are the people who will die and who will divert. So when you take those case studies home, you'll see that the laws changed in 2015. The driving laws have changed now. So it's not just that you're a bad driver. If you have a level of morphine above 80 micrograms, your patient can still be arrested. And there is a medical defence, but it's not very strong, especially not if they're being hit or they've hit someone else, which is how 90% of drug driving comes out because of a collision. So that's another just thing to remember, that you will already be prescribing for people dangerous amounts, that you are putting their livelihood in danger. Okay? And then there's another thing about what you do whenever they're diverting their own medicine, because that's also legal jeopardy for them. So you get a young patient, you get her back on her feet, and she's just the witch doctor for the street. She's giving all the medicines to everybody on the street. If you don't tackle her, she has a very high likelihood of losing her job, etc., etc. So these are why it's the right issue to do. So I've got a lot for the first session. Hope that's useful. Any more questions before we go?
Somebody talked about policy. The patient asks you, you tell the patient, it's not about policy, and you say, please, can I see that policy? What would you do?
I would say, I'll leave it at the front desk for you, and then I'd write it as they, I'd write it in many days. That's what we do. Although increasingly, so in Greater Manchester, a speed limit's in some of the areas, and there's other speed limits in. And there's lots of stuff online about it. But if you're struggling to say no, go off and read what patients are saying to each other about extracting stuff from fentanyl, about how that panini swapping. It really helps you to say no, because what they're saying to you isn't what's really going to happen once they leave the room.
There are some partners who have agreed with some patients to be on this dose forever. What do you do about those patients? Do you just
So I have my opinions. What does the hive mind think? How would anyone else handle that situation?
Are the partners still there? Or are they like
yes, they're still there.
And they've written in black and white?
Yeah.
Great.
So
it's a discussion probably with the partner.
But what do I do? So they just every time it's on repeat scripts.
Yes,
so
send it to the partner. You have your name on it. I'm not having my name on it.
Is it good medicine, first of all? Is it good medicine?
It is not, but they've come to an agreement, the patients come to an agreement, they have come to an agreement, the partners come to an agreement. Every time I sign off that script, I feel, but then what do I do? Because there's an agreement between the partner and the patient.
Okay, any other ideas?
So this is a good demonstration of what can be big problems, because you can fight the good fight, but they might come and see a colleague, and like you say, see the locum and back to square one.
Talk to that.
Probably give me a locum, so.
So when I see that stuff from older doctors, I remember that they have seen more than I've seen. So I would be curious about how that happened. So I would maybe go in a sort of an open-eyed, I've not seen this before. I've been to a workshop, no one else has heard this before. Why have you done this? They may have an explanation. Also, you have a series of LFTs, and you have, has it worked? Is there evidence of harm in the last 5-10 years? If there's no evidence of harm, if they say, they used to be, they might say to you they were a mad alcoholic, they were on all sorts of street drugs, and 140 of these have kept them stable. I don't know why it works, but it's worked like a methadone script, because I've seen that before. You might then say, well, I'm going to choose my battles, and this isn't the one, but I'm going to ask them to sign it. I'm going to ask them to sign it. Because those scripts can be, post-dated scripts can be done. So be curious. Especially before you judge all the GPs, although I know I'm giving you, food for thought, maybe, definitely judging all the GPs, but do be curious, because there are some reasons, there's a history about why people are on those sort of deals. It's not always just a manipulated, broken old GP that's made a deal, but sometimes it is. And if it is, then that's an internal thing.
I don't think the GP is broken. couldn't get anyone. I think that's where
We have a patient who has got a mad florid history, and every time someone stops her homeopathic haloperidol, she turns up every day, she has every infection, she is just a nightmare, and her life falls apart. And every time we get a young doctor, we have to say to them, this is the person, you're going to want to stop the haloperidol, just give them, you know, homeopathic haloperidol. So sometimes there's a reason for it. Perfect. So thank you very much for getting involved. We haven't covered the entire topic, but I hope we've given you some pointers and some clues. Thank you.